8:36. For nearly 30 years, there have been laws against discriminating against disabled people. In particular, employers have to make what are known as reasonable adjustments to help disabled people do their job. But what counts as a disability? The Equality and Human Rights Commission now say that the employers can be sued if they don't make adjustments for women having symptoms of the menopause. But is it right to think of a woman going through a regular life stage as disabled, even if the symptoms might be debilitating? We can speak now to Caroline Noakes, Conservative MP and Chair of the Women and Equalities Committee. Morning, Caroline.
Morning.
And also to Rachel Lancaster, founder of Magnificent Midlife. Morning, Rachel.
Good morning.
Let's start with this question, I suppose. Caroline, start with you. Is it okay to say, is it right to say that menopause symptoms can be, in some circumstances, considered a disability?
Well, look, the symptoms can be debilitating, but my select committee has done an enormous amount of work on this, and our suggestion to the Equalities and Human Rights Commission was that women should be able to bring tribunal claims on a combined ground, so age and sex, which would then make it easier for them to bring cases when they had been discriminated against because of menopausal symptoms. I don't see the menopause as a disability. With medication and with the right support and with the necessary adjustments, most women will get through it without being able or being wanted to be considered disabled. But I think it's good that the EHRC is now taking action, is providing guidance to employers. That's a huge stride forward that we wouldn't have seen a few years ago.
Rachel, what do you think? You might actually agree with that, presumably, then the disability might be the wrong direction in terms of semantics, but the direction of travel is the correct one.
I do agree, absolutely, wholeheartedly. I think it's very, very positive that women are being supported and protected as well. I think that it's very important that awareness is being elevated. But I hate this word disability. Yeah, I don't consider myself to be disabled. And I think it is an unfortunate precedent to associate menopause with disability. I just think it adds further to that sort of negative impact that we feel about menopause, the whole negative impression that we have of this natural life stage, which actually can be quite good, and it can be quite transforming. That's certainly been my experience. I haven't sailed through it. I've had my own difficulties, but I would like us to think in terms of it not being a disability and not being something debilitating for every woman. I think that's where we seem to have gone with our narrative here in the UK, that it is something to be struggled through and something that will be very, very difficult. And I don't necessarily agree with that.
Is that a problem, you think? I know my mother-in-law constantly says this to me, that she says, and look, this is a bit of a person who's at a stage of her life where she thinks that everyone now moans about everything. But she would say, actually, it's a life stage and women have coped with it for millennia and millennia and millennia. And now we're making too much of a thing about it. And in the end, that makes women victims rather than empowering them.
Oh, look, it doesn't make women victims, and we're not making too much of it. Every woman will have a different menopause journey. Every woman will have different symptoms, and I really envy those who go through their menopause with no symptoms at all, and that's great for them. But the stark reality is we've seen the statistics, the evidence that women are not taking promotions, that they're being pushed out of work, that their symptoms are so bad they simply can't carry on working. So for those women, we need to have effective policies in place. We need to make sure that employers, and so many employers are signing up to become menopause-friendly employers, becoming real champions and wanting to have the conversation, because they recognise women in their late 40s and 50s are absolutely the women in their organisations that are the organisers, the managers, the role models to younger women. So they want to keep them. And what the EHRC is doing with its guidance is providing a little bit more help and steer to those employers. Here are some suggestions. Now, look, we won't all agree with all of the suggestions, but at least we're talking about it. At least those women who've been through the menopause for generations before recognise that they suffered in silence, when actually being prepared to break down the stigma and the taboo is the best way forward.
Rachel, take one example of this. Do you think a woman should be able to sue their employer because they don't let them start work later because they're struggling to sleep because of the menopause? That's one of the things that's being discussed here.
Oh, it's difficult, isn't it? I think I don't like the idea of people having to sue employers for their rights. I think that we've actually got it wrong if women can't do that anyway. I think flexibility in the workplace is massive. And I think that traditionally our workplaces have been set up for men. And we all know that women shoulder so many more of the caring responsibilities throughout life. And I do believe that there's a lot more going on in midlife than just menopause for women. And I think that we tend to have the menopause bandwagon at the moment, or the bank wagon, as I like to call it, because everybody's jumping on it. And
Are you suspicious of that a bit, Rachel?
I am very suspicious about that, yes. But I think there's a lot of value signaling as well. You know, everybody wants to be seen to be doing the right thing. But let's think about ageism in the workplace. Let's think about gendered ageism and the impact that that has on women. Why do women have their confidence knocked in menopause, for example? Why do women feel shame about talking about menopause? It's because of gendered ageism. And I think there's a danger that we tick the box and we say, we've done what we need to do for older women because we've tackled the menopause issue. Whereas actually, I think there's a much deeper set of things to think about. And I think flexibility of working is absolutely crucial, because if, for example, an older woman, a woman in her late 40s, early 50s, maybe she's juggling, you know, looking after older children and her elderly parents. You know, maybe she is for the first time encountering real ageism, that she feels forced to dye her hair. Otherwise, she feels she won't be taken seriously in the workplace. There are so many issues there.
Does that happen, do you think? Does that happen?
Absolutely. Oh, my goodness. There are so many women. Well, we're taught to buy the anti-aging products from when we're teenagers these days, aren't we? And by the time we get to midlife, do you know that imposter syndrome is the highest for women around the time of menopause? And I see that there's no surprise about that, because we're taught that menopause is bad. We're taught that, you know, menopause means we're past it. We're no longer relevant in society. And actually, you know, as Caroline says, it's these older women who are in positions of power and authority and influence. We need to keep them. So we need to make work better for women in general, but particularly for older women.
And that's just finally, Caroline, that's the risk here, isn't it? That there is a certain bank wagon, as Rachel calls it, where you know what will happen. Some management consultancy somewhere is already planning on getting some money for having a menopause seminar and menopause checklist for other companies who don't want to think about it to pay for. They'll trouser the money. The company will put on their website somewhere that they do it, and everyone will truck along as normal. That's a risk in all of this, isn't it? The industry, the menopause industry seems to be growing.
Well, look, I'm just going to hit back with those great organisations like Positivity, who provide posters and workplace guidance for free. There are many downloadable policies on the internet that come at no cost. And indeed, if you go to the DWP, there's even a portal there where you can get employer advice. So whilst Rachel's absolutely right, there is a whole industry around the menopause. Actually, that has predominantly sprung up from women who want change, women who are doing the right things for each other. It's sprung up because all of us have gone or are going through the menopause and want to make sure that the narrative is different for those who come after us. And whilst in every industry, in every sector, there'll always be people looking to make a quick buck. What's really struck me is the majority of people I've found working on the menopause have actually been doing it for the right reasons, because they want to see women in their 50s able to not just survive, but to thrive.
Okay, very good point. Caroline Noakes and Rachel Lancaster, thank you very much for joining us. Someone has raised the question of the menopause here as well. Men over a certain age suffer enlarged prostates. That means lots of loo breaks and interrupted sleep at night. Time to recognise this in the workplace, or do we have a workplace that needs to recognise all of those things?